Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about test case flow. And this helps people understand and efficiently plan how they're going to execute test cases going across. Some of the things that happen is that with the flow, if you don't have the right understanding of how the test cases all work and go through, a couple things are going to happen. You could have, let's just say, you're testing an application, you have 10 test cases to run within a flow. Okay? But each of those cases have, let's just say, about 5 different actions. And because of those 5 different actions, there's 5 points of failure. And within those 5 points of failure, each part could be different than the other as to why the failure occurred. So if you think about it from a reporting perspective, you run through a test case and it fails halfway through in let's just say a particular step. And in doing so and running through that step and you cause a failure, you fail that test case, obviously. And then you create a ticket and then you go through the fix and you get the fix and you come back in. Now, from a reporting perspective, from an execution perspective, you failed one test case. But in the end, you actually paused, you actually stopped. Who knows how many test cases? Because if you think about it, if you have 5 points of failure, let's say you fail a test case in the third point, in the third action, and something happens, something fails. The first 2 actions passed. It was the third action that failed. And I'd say the 4th and 5th action, if you were to simulate how to go through and simulate those actions to work, let's just say 4 and 5 actually work. So as you look through from an execution perspective, you have 4 test cases that could possibly pass and 1 failed. But when you're doing the reporting and everyone looks at the reporting, they see from an execution and how the flow is going through, they only see 1 test case fail out of 10. So that's 10%. But if you break it down and if you have that 1 action, let's say all the other cases pass of the 10. All the other actions pass except for the 1. So now you're looking at a 10% rework, amount of rework happening. And from an executive point of view, looking at that type of report, good, 10% is not bad, but they may create some concern. But if you have 1 out of 50, that's now 2%. That's a better rate. That's a better execution. It shows kind of the quality of going through. Now, there's a whole lot of other reports that we could talk about from a code quality. Pass fail rates, you don't really want to use those. There's other better reports to use. But from that initial dashboard perspective to see how everything is going, it does show a better number. So the way we got to look at flow is break the test cases down per action. So now you have 5. And when you do that, you actually create where you have the output of 1 test case leads into another, which leads into another. So you're still doing 10 flows, but you're running 50 cases within those flows, within that flow. And what's happening is this. You're kind of building a wall. The outcome of 1 builds on the other. And as you do that, it makes things more efficient, understanding as to where the fixes are. And then actually from a root cause analysis, it helps understanding where those failures are and how those failures got there. And then there's a process fix that can happen with it. If you look at an entire just 1 test case that failed out of 1 of these 5 points of failure, things can get lost and then misunderstood. So the way we got to look at test cases is the output of one leads into another test case to test, which leads into another. And you string those test cases along. Yeah, it's a larger number of test cases, but in a previous discussion when we talked about reusability, when you're reusing those test cases, you're not really doing anything. You're just reusing the steps. You're doing the steps, just put it into a test case and link them all up and go through the flow. Doing that flow now remains something consistent, and it also helps an automation team to take those manual test cases, those dynamic test cases where people key in on the keyboard, and they're able to take that flow and create their own flow within their code. Thanks for listening. Talk to you later.